The movie begins, and we see China's longest river, the Yangtze. Along its banks, many battles have been fought, one of which is the Battle of Red Cliff. This battle was fought over a woman, and the movie is called Red Cliff. During the 2nd century, under the reign of Emperor Xian of the Han Dynasty, Chancellor Chao took advantage of the young emperor's inexperience and the growing discord in the court to establish his dominance over all of China. At his command, the army was ready to do anything. Even the emperor himself feared him. Having just returned from a victorious battle in the north, the chancellor proposed in the court that the landlords of the southern states, including Sun Quan and Liu Bei, had begun to raise their voices against him. He sought permission to confront them. However, some senior advisors objected, stating that the army was exhausted from continuous warfare and that there was no concrete evidence of any suspicious activity in the south. They argued that the southern states were peaceful, paid their taxes on time, and that the chancellor's intentions behind this invasion were unclear. But ignoring everyone's concerns, his army soon covered miles of distance and reached the southern borders. Facing an army of nearly 800,000 was beyond the capability of any small landlord. In Jin province, near the borders, the landlord Liu Bei ordered the evacuation of the common people living in the region and ensured their safe relocation. With just a few thousand soldiers, he put up a fierce resistance. Even in the face of inevitable defeat, some of Liu's loyal warriors continued to fight for him. Seeing their devotion, Chancellor Chao thought to himself that such warriors should also fight for him one day. He believed that once he conquered the entire south, these warriors would obey his every command. But after suffering heavy losses, including the deaths of many young soldiers and their wives, Liu had no choice but to retreat. That evening, sitting among his wounded soldiers and officers, Liu said, "Chao believes that all of China is now under his control, and he wants to impose his will everywhere. But as long as I breathe, I will never bow to him." At that moment, his advisor Liang said, "Chao's next target will be our neighboring state." He suggested that they should seek help from Sun Quan. But Liu questioned, is he capable enough to stand against Chao? Liang replied, Sun Quan's family has ruled there for generations. He is wealthy, possesses a powerful naval force, and is thoroughly familiar with the southern terrain. In the entire south, there is perhaps no one who can challenge Chao the way he can. But will he be willing to help us and make an enemy of Chao? Gaining his cooperation will be a difficult task. After traveling for several days, advisor Liang arrived at Sun Quan's palace. Upon hearing Liang's proposal, some supported it, while others opposed it. Some argued that instead of confronting Chao, they should capture Liu Bei and hand him over to Chancellor Chao as a gesture of goodwill, as rebellion against Chao could be costly. But Sun Quan was well aware that this situation could not last for long. Chao would soon reach his doorstep as well. Now, there were only two options left, either surrender or join hands with Liu. There was one more person who could influence Sun Quan's decision in their favor, Yan, who oversaw foreign affairs and was stationed at Red Cliff. Liang went to him. Yan was not only a skilled military general, but also an exceptional musician. Music helped him understand situations with clarity and calmness, allowing him to think strategically. After his meeting with Liang, Yan fell into deep contemplation. Meanwhile, Chancellor Chao sat gazing at the portrait of a woman, the reason he had come this far. She was my mentor's daughter, and the moment I saw her, I lost my heart to her. Today, I have come to take her back. This woman was none other than Yan's wife, Sozin. She, too, was distressed, as she was well aware of the strength of the enemy and the impending danger. Chao's army consisted of northern soldiers, experienced in land warfare, but not in naval battles. However, several landlords in the south had already surrendered and joined his side, including two generals, Mao and Zhang, who commanded a naval fleet. Finally, the day arrived when Chancellor Chao's message reached Sun Quan, clearly stating that he must surrender. Since Sun Quan's family had ruled the southern lands for generations, accepting this proposal was impossible for him. He summoned Yan and granted him permission to prepare for battle with the full force of their military. He also allied with Liu Bei. Now, Yan traveled to Liu Bei's camp to negotiate their alliance. The war had caused Liu's forces heavy casualties, yet they all stood together. There, Yan found people deeply connected to the land. Despite holding high ranks, some soldiers worked in the dirt alongside their men, others taught children, and Liu himself was engaged in weaving. However, tension existed within the two factions. Yan had only 3,000 soldiers, and half of Liu's troops had already perished in battle. How could this alliance be meaningful against such a powerful enemy? Yan picked up a single twig and snapped it effortlessly. Then, he gathered several twigs together and attempted to break them, but they remained intact despite multiple attempts. He used this to explain his point. Together, we can defeat an enemy 10 times our size. I have come with the vision of a free South. I need all of you to stand with me. Meanwhile, at Chancellor Chao's court, a dancer performed. He had become so obsessed that he saw Sozhen's face in every woman. Now, Sun Quan's envoy arrived with a response to Chancellor Chao's message. The letter was completely blank, symbolizing that Sun Quan would not waste time writing and was already preparing for war. In response, Chancellor Chao ordered the envoy's execution. One of his naval generals then reported, Liu Bei and Sun Quan have formed an alliance. Yin has defeated many enemies in battle and is an exceptional military leader. Advisor Liang should not be underestimated either. He is a highly intelligent man. But Chancellor Chao, who had never lost a battle, laughed and dismissed the concern. One is a fugitive, Liu Bei, and the other is a musician, Yin. Even if they have joined forces, it makes no difference to me. Yin mourned the loss of his envoy and began war preparations. Where would the enemy attack from? By land or by water? Chancellor Chao was secretive, never revealing his true intentions, not even to his officers. He had General Mao and Zhang's naval fleet at his disposal, but he knew that defeating Yin on water would be difficult. So, to divert attention, he would send a small naval detachment while launching his main attack by land on Yan's Red Cliff camp. Yin, however, had already anticipated this, as his forces were limited and could only defend either land or water. Understanding the enemy's mind was the key to victory. The next day, Chao's army arrived at the camp, only to find it deserted. He assumed Yin had fled, but suddenly, Sun Quan's sister, Shanji, who was a warrior herself, appeared with a battalion of female soldiers, leading them into a trap that had been set for Chao's massive army. The battlefield had been designed like the patterns on a turtle's shell, dividing Chao's forces and trapping them. Hidden behind iron shields, the Allied forces launched a brutal attack. Yin himself fought alongside his men, boosting their morale. This strategy proved successful, and Chao's soldiers and generals were defeated, though they were spared. Chancellor Chao had never tasted defeat before. As the saying goes, one should never underestimate an enemy, and that was exactly the mistake he had made. Though defeated on land, Chao's naval forces had already infiltrated deep into enemy territory. He had set up camp across the Yangtze River, right opposite Red Cliff. In 2 days, he would launch a full-scale attack. Following their victory, Yan's army was more confident than ever. Standing by the river, looking at Chao's fleet, Yin remarked, "Everyone has a weakness. Chao's is that he trusts no one but himself. Once he makes a decision, he does not listen to anyone." Sun Quan's sister, Shanji, told advisor Liang, "The river and land that Chao stands on belong to us. I know them well. No one else is better suited than me to gather intelligence from inside." Meanwhile, Chancellor Chao wasted half his time chasing a dancer who resembled Sozhen, even making her dress like Sozhen. But no matter how much he tried, she would never become Sozhen. He was only deceiving himself. Even his officers had begun to realize that Chao had come this far only for a woman. The next day, Liang was standing with Yan when a pigeon flew in. Tied to its legs was a message that Liang had sent earlier that morning for Sanj. Yan said, "Chancellor Chao relies solely on Generals Mao and Zhang for his navy. They are undoubtedly skilled and, being from the south, are well acquainted with the climate here. If both of them are eliminated, Chancellor Chao's army will become directionless on the water." Meanwhile, Sanji sent word that a plague had spread through Chancellor Chao's army. After fighting in the northern battle, their immunity had weakened due to another deployment in the south, making any disease deadly for them. However, instead of cremating the deceased soldiers with honor, Chancellor Chao was sending them across the river on boats, hoping to spread the disease to the other side. Yan, despite knowing everything, did not lose his humanity out of fear of the plague and gave those soldiers a respectful farewell. By morning, another distressing piece of news arrived. Lieb had abandoned the battlefield and would no longer support Yan. His army was already small, and with the plague spreading, he had turned his back on the fight. This enraged many on Yan's side, but advisor Liang did not leave him. He wanted to see the war's conclusion. Then, we see that Chancellor Chao's spy brought news that the plague plan had worked. Lieb had broken the alliance, and Yan was now alone. Chancellor Chao made another move. He recruited Yan's old friend and sent him back to Yan as an informant. Back at Yan's camp, everyone was worried. With Lieb's departure, their army and weapons had reduced by half. Advisor Liang took the responsibility of acquiring 100,000 arrows within 3 days. In return, he demanded that Yan eliminate both navy generals. Yan accepted the challenge. Sun Quan's advisor was astonished. 2 days had passed, yet Liang had not even crafted a single arrow. Instead, he simply gazed at the sky. Smiling, Liang said, "For one who can decipher nature's secrets, nothing is impossible." He then asked, "Did you bring the 20 small boats as I instructed?" Han replied, "Yes, I did." Liang held a turtle in his hands, and sweat was forming on its shell. "This means fog will rise soon," he said. "Tonight, everything will be set in motion. At the camp, Yan's old friend, now working as Chancellor Chao's informant, arrived. The two drank a lot, but the informant was focused solely on extracting information from Yan. However, Yan was aware of his intentions. During their conversation, the informant let slip a rumor that Chancellor Chao had come all this way to claim Yan's wife. So heard this statement just as a soldier arrived with an urgent message. The spy listened attentively. Generals Mao and Zhang had sent a letter stating they would soon bring Chancellor Chao's severed head. Yan said, "I have complete faith in my generals." That night, when the informant was asleep, he stole the letter and fled. But Yan's plan had worked. He only needed to plant a seed of doubt in Chao's mind, and he would bring about his own downfall. The next morning, amidst dense fog, Chancellor Chao's soldiers saw boats approaching and unleashed a barrage of arrows, unaware that the boats were empty. However, the boats returned filled with arrows. Once enough arrows had been collected, Liang turned the boats back to shore. Chao's generals were confused about what had just happened. Meanwhile, the informant arrived with a fake letter that contained forged evidence of Generals Mao and Zhang's betrayal. The handwriting was an exact match to theirs. Enraged, Chancellor Chao immediately ordered their execution. A man who could not remain loyal to his friend could never be loyal to anyone else, and thus, Chao had the informant killed as well. Soon after, Chancellor Chao learned that boats had landed amidst the morning fog and that the letter was a forgery. Realizing this, he became completely unhinged. His patience was wearing thin. He thought, "My army is 10 times larger, yet he is playing games with me." In a desperate move, he ordered an all-out naval assault. Sanji returned to Red Cliffs, bringing with her a map of Chancellor Chao's entire camp, which would be invaluable for planning an attack. War strategies were being laid out. Defeating such a massive army single-handedly was impossible. They needed fire to destroy the enemy fleet. Chancellor Chao also knew that when outnumbered, war strategies advised using fire. Unfortunately, the wind was in Chao's favor. It was blowing from the northwest. If they used fire, they would burn themselves. Yan realized this as well, causing everyone to fall into deep thought. Just then, advisor Liang proposed a solution. "Farmers have taught me that during winter, when dark clouds obscure the sun, an unseasonal reverse wind blows along the Yangtze River, heading southeast." Sanji asked, "What if Chancellor Chao already knows about this?" Liang replied, "There's little chance of that. Both Navy generals are dead." Sun Quan asked, "How soon will the wind shift?" Liang answered, "Tonight or early tomorrow morning." Sanji then asked, "What if Chao attacks before the wind changes?" Liang said, "We must delay his attack." "But how?" Hearing all this, Sajin, 3 months pregnant, set out for Chancellor Chao's camp. Diplomacy, deception, coercion, and strategy. These are the 4 tenets of warfare. Now, it was time for deception. Yan needed time, and Sajin was going to buy it for him. When Yan entered his chamber, he found a letter left by Sajin. Meanwhile, as soon as Chancellor Chao learned of Sajin's arrival, he personally came to receive her and took her into a private chamber. His officers were bewildered. Why has she come here at this time? Yan, fully prepared for battle, stood silently. General Han said, "I wish to take a unit and rescue your wife." But Yan refused. "This is not the time for distractions. The plan will not change." At Chao's camp, he was entirely focused on Sajin. He said, "I was once your father's disciple. When I first saw you, you were breathtakingly beautiful. I always wished to drink tea made by your hands, but I never got the chance." Sajin asked, "Did you wage this war for me? If you came to win me, then I surrender at your feet. But please, spare my people. End this war." Chao replied, "You must watch Yan fall at my hands. Only then will I have truly won you." Both armies were fully prepared. Just as Chancellor Chao was about to leave, Sajin stopped him for a cup of tea. How long could it take to drink 1 cup of tea? Chao stayed. His generals were restless. "This is no time for tea. Every moment is crucial," Sajin said. "Just as this cup is full, so too are you, full of arrogance, stubbornness, and ego, leaving no space for anything else. But now it's time to empty it." Suddenly, the wind stopped. Sajin had been waiting for this moment. Exactly at 1 a.m., the wind changed direction, and so did their fate. The entire southern wind was now in their favor. General Han said, "What are we waiting for?" Yan replied, "For Lieb. He never truly abandoned us. It was all part of the plan to deceive Chancellor Chao. Only the 2 of us knew." Back at Chao's camp, after drinking the tea, he felt an intense headache. Sajin said, "War was as easy for you as drinking tea. Today, this very tea has defeated you." The fierce battle began. Women played just as crucial a role. Sanji and Sajin fought alongside everyone else. Along with Chancellor Chao's army, his arrogance was reduced to ashes. So, how did you like today's story? Don't forget to like and comment.